Well, we tackled a very big subject today, the death of God in the life of Jesus Christ. And I want to spend just a few seconds summarizing what we said. And then I want to help those of you that are trying to translate this into different environments, think about how you might make sense of this in that environment. First, what we were saying is that our image of God comes rather early in life, and it's pretty fluid at first, but over time it gets fixed, and then after that, hard. God becomes very personal, very portable. Sometimes we're prejudiced. He is for this and against that. And those are more our ideas than they are the true God. And those ideas harden as we get older. And then something happens where this God that we believe in suddenly doesn't line up with the way things are going or what we were just told by someone else. And this God that we believed in as a child starts to die. At least the image of God starts to die. God Himself perhaps is changeless, but the only God people have is the God they can understand. The real God may have us, but the one we have is the one we understand. And in that death, if we will embrace this, the loss of our God and what He is like in this very sensitive and tender moment in our life, God will find us, and there will be a resurrection of one that is even better and stronger and more personal, closer to the truth. Now, how you might apply that, I want to think of in a couple of ways. First, if you're thinking of doing this in a non-religious environment where people around you either cannot convene or when they do get together, you can't just go in and start talking about who is God and who is Jesus. Let me give you a few questions you might use to either frame a conversation with somebody one-on-one or to lead a group if you could get people together. You might start by talking about what we said early in the message, where we said that, that most of us never reach our true potential or we never perform quite as well as we could because we don't know who we are. And we spend so much of our lives chasing something, some image of the ideal person, somebody else than the person we really are. And the person we act like is never as good as the person we are. It's not as authentic. It's not as graceful or as elegant of a personality. And so talk about what gets muted in our lives when we don't follow an ultimate standard. You might begin by asking people what image they have of themselves. Maybe when they were a child and as they got older, how those images changed and where did they get those images and how do they know if that image is true or not? You might at some point ask them, if there were a God, what would He be like? And if we were made in His image, and I understand for some of you this is quite a jump in the conversation, what would we be like in response to Him? Now you're starting to anchor a person's identity in the nature of God, which is where we want them to be. Now this may be a conversation one-on-one in the workroom or in the lunchroom, or it may be actually in a group. And then after you ask them that, what image do you have of yourself? You might ask them, was there a time in your life when that image changed? And how did it change when other people came into your life? You might ask them, how did you know you were getting better or worse? And when you do that, you're already implying that there's a standard. Somewhere out there is the perfect person that we are all striving to become. That person, of course, in the Christian faith, is none other than Jesus Himself. There is another way to lead this, and that is if you were in a discipleship group and you can mention the name of God or Jesus immediately. And if you do that, then I would recommend a few questions that would guide that process. Let me give you those. The first question is, I would just start by saying, when you were a child, did you believe in God? And what did you believe about Him? Ask them to give you adjectives. He was strong, He was close, He was far away. And where did you get those ideas? Then ask them if there was ever a time in their life where those images started to change. Get them talking about the seasons in their life where what they thought of God started to die, in a sense, so that another one could rise. Ask them how those images have changed. Then, if this is the discipleship group, you may even ask them, now if Jesus is like God and God is like Jesus, what is it about Jesus that most surprises you about God? Ask them, what might you have to unlearn about God that you knew for sure as a child, but you're finding as you get older, maybe it isn't true? And if you were to unlearn that, what other things might replace those? What have you seen in Jesus that shows you a better, fuller, clearer picture of who God is? Then ask them to tell you who it is they're going to invite into their life or who they're going to tell who can help them in this journey. Remind them that this is a journey. This isn't something that we do one time. It happens again and again all through life. And it doesn't happen in a day. This one cycle, as I described this morning, is sometimes several months, maybe even years long. I want to encourage you. God has put you in a place where you can bring tremendous amount of influence in people's lives. You can change what they think about God. And when you do, you are removing the layers between the real I and the real thou. And as you do that, you will see your people along with you shift slowly from slave to child.